Absolutely great. Well, thanks to everybody for coming out today. We've been focused here at the Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, where there's a huge amount of improvements underway that we think will be helpful to the workforce that's here and, of course, really vital to national security. So I really want to thank Senator Rono, Congressman Case, who were here today. But this is part of a longer set of trips I've been doing back and forth to Hawaii, in large part because of its incredible importance to national security. And really want to thank the state leadership as well, who've worked really closely with us. The people of Hawaii are part of this workforce here at the shipyard, and that's just emblematic of all that the people of Hawaii do in support and working alongside the Department of Defense. So we're really focused on how do we make sure we're responsible partners in that, and a lot of the investments that we're doing here are a good example. This is the largest investment in a military construction project in DoD history that we're doing here, about $3.6 billion just into this shipyard. And then overall, over the next 5 years, including this year, there's more than $6 billion worth of military construction going on throughout Hawaii. So again, those are just examples of the ways in which we're collaborating to really bring the workforce jobs. At peak here, we think there'll be up to 800 jobs just at this shipyard. And that is, we were told today, more than 90% of that is Hawaiian workforce. So let me stop there and turn it over to Eric.
Ma'am, we'll go left to right. So Kevin Nodell with the Honolulu Star Advertiser.
Sure. Hi.
I guess we can start with, big investment,
Yeah.
But, some of the members of the delegation have voiced concerns that current draft legislation doesn't have sufficient funding for the next year to keep it on schedule. Is that something that they've raised with you? Do you share those concerns? How do you feel on the funding that you guys are getting to get this through?
Sure. So we're very comfortable with the funding we got in the year that we're in, fiscal year 23, and the delegation's been really supportive of that. For fiscal year 24, we're going through that budget process right now, and things are complicated right now on Capitol Hill. Our biggest concern, which we do share with the delegation, is making sure the appropriations actually come and that they're on time, that we avoid a continuing resolution or even worse, a government shutdown. So we've been really trying alongside them to make the point that projects like this cannot proceed on time and on schedule unless we can get those appropriations. So that's been our focus.
Okay. Sabrina Bowden with Hawaii Public Radio.
Yeah, so I think you've heard a lot about timeline and kind of outdated, antiquated technology and facilities here. Like 20 years for temporary housing. And
Sure.
I think part of your questions were really about kind of the quality of life and how do we make, these dilapidated conditions and make it better for the workforce. Can you talk to me a little bit about your initial thoughts, if the answers were adequate for you?
Yeah, I think the answers were good. I think they're thinking from the perspective of the workforce, both in terms of, we talked a lot about productivity, right? So quality of life, obviously that's good for the workforce, but what's good for the workforce is good for productivity. Better parking, faster commute times, making sure they have, bathrooms and ventilation and places to eat, and all of that seems to be built into how they're thinking through this. I think my biggest concern, and you probably heard this, is schedule, so that we can move to that world, to that reality as quickly as possible. That's going to help us get submarines out, repaired and out the door and maintained. But it's also going to make sure that that workforce is having, a quality of life that they deserve.
Patrick Tucker, Defense One.
Yes, thank you. One of the things that we learned about today during the brief was how this new construction is meant to be adaptive to climate futures and anticipating a sea level rise. In the House-passed version of the NDAA, there's a block on money for environmental research for DoD. So construction like this, as well as the Defense Department's broader effort to adapt to climate change. So it's very destructive. We have to make sure that our military can operate
And those conditions can be under fire. Those conditions can be a loss of communication, meaning cyber attacks, but also those conditions can be everything from wildfire to sea level rise to drought. And we know this, and we have to learn how to operate that way. So I think anytime we see challenges to the military just trying to be as resilient as possible and as effective as possible in the range of futures that we face, I think that's destructive to the military's capability and to its readiness. And we're all about making sure we're ready. We're all about making sure those war fighters downrange here in the Indo-Pacific, of course, the region of greatest concern for us right now, that we can, deliver that military effect that we're called on to be able to do, and we have to be able to do that in the face of climate change. So yes, it's a challenge.